So about a month and a half ago, I had a chance to go speak to a group of activists and legislators in the state of Minnesota, directly to the north of where we live in Iowa, because they're attempting, the spirit of the age right now is attempting to Californication Minnesota as we speak, to essentially make it the California of the Midwest. And so they were so desperate for any scintilla, crumbs basically of wisdom, that they're like, all right, we've tried everybody else. Let's go ahead and bring Deace in as a last resort. All right. So had a chance to meet several cool people up there. One of them joins us now. He is a member of the Minnesota State Legislature. Walter Hudson is here with us. Don't Google his name, however. If you do, you will confuse him with the man who once had the Guinness Book of World's Record for the largest waistline in American history. That is not Walter. But good to see you nevertheless, brother. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. And yeah, I've been dealing with that since childhood. So I appreciate you bringing it up right off the bat.
On the other hand, I bet that kept you on the straight and narrow from a fitness standpoint, right? Now, it's not me. It's not me. Yeah.
I wish I could say I benefited more from it than I actually have.
All right. Well, what's happening right now? First of all, why did you hate your life so much that you thought, I am going to run for office? I mean, my opinions are just not well enough known. I haven't alienated enough members of the family. I haven't had, enough of my friends give me the cross eye. I haven't had my kids look at me and say, Dad, can't we just have a normal life? I haven't done that enough. All right. So I'm going to run for office and just make matters all the more worse. What prompted you to do that, Walter?
Well, listening to you outline it like that, I certainly didn't evaluate it rationally. What I did was I followed what I perceived as my calling. And I think that's something that we all have to do. I mean, one of the questions, I'm sure it's one of the questions you get asked a lot too, is what can we do? And usually somebody means, what can I do? Mm-hmm. And I try to personalize it for it's like, look, I don't know your life. I don't know your calling. I don't know your ministry. What I do know is that you've been put where you're at, and that doors are open that lead down certain paths. And so what you need to be doing is prayerfully attuning yourself to the prompting of when you should be going left or right or moving forward or backward. And you will find your way. And that's kind of how I tripped into this situation. And I also apply that to going forward, right? So people ask me, what are your aspirations? Where are you heading next? And I don't have any aspirations. I'm dealing with what's in front of me today. And if I do a good enough job of that, then maybe I'll get another opportunity down.
Why did you choose the state legislature? Why run there?
As I say, it was an opportunity that was made available. So we had redistricting, and I live in a very red area of the state. Believe it or not, we do have some red areas of this very blue state at the moment. And my, at the time, current representative was moving into an open Senate district, and that just created the opportunity. And I've been involved in Republican politics for quite some time, both at the local kind of activist level, but then also as a commentator and what have you. And so I knew how these things work. The maps were going to drop on a Tuesday. Our endorsing convention was on that Saturday. So I saw a unique opportunity to kind of thread the needle and get in.
I think this is important for a lot of our audience around the country, Walter, to understand, because I think people, when they hear blue state, they immediately jump to California, New York, okay, heavily urbanized states, and that's true in those cases. But except for those rare states, most of America is basically Alabama. Most of America is one or two major metropolitan centers, and then everything else is pretty rural and pretty red. And then this is why Hillary Clinton won, I think it was 16% of counties. In 2016, Joe Biden actually won a little bit fewer percentage of those counties when he won in 2020. And so these maps that we like to produce after we lose an election all the time about how, well, look how red everything. These maps have been true. You and I are both Gen X. These maps have been true pretty much, with some deviation here and there, have been pretty true our entire lifetimes. Most of the country there are one or two very blue urban areas or heavily populated, densely populated college towns that are either attached to those urban areas, like in Ann Arbor is attached to Detroit, in my home state of Michigan, for example, or separate from that. And that's the entirety of the Democratic vote in the entire state thereabouts. And then everything else basically looks rural and red. And that's, most of America, Minnesota's one of those states, is basically one or two urban blue areas and everything else is Alabama, right?
Yeah, that's true. And I also find that what we think of as blue and red trapped in this kind of political bubble, I think is not really applicable to the everyday citizen on the street. And I kind of use my in-laws as a gauge of where the people are at, because they are very down-to-earth, apolitical people. Some of them vote Democrat, but if you were to talk to them about issues, if you were to talk to them about the things that they care about, they're trending conservative. And so the soil is there to be tilled to turn a place like this red, and we've seen it happen elsewhere. Florida is a great example.
Now that you're in office, and let's play off of your in-laws for a second, because I have a similar story with some aspects of my own family, but they're not in-laws this time. They're on my own side of the family. That if we were to talk about issues, they would be pretty traditional and conservative. You start talking about political branding, and there's a deviation to the norm, and there. We have been struggling on the right for as long as I can remember, how to get the kinds of people you and I are talking about to vote our way. That there is some, as if there's like a message that we haven't unlocked or a talking point we haven't figured out to get people to that claim to have a lot of the viewpoints that Republicans typically run on to actually vote Republican. Meanwhile, on the other side, they just don't. I think you see it now in the legislature with them in control. I saw it working for 2 years with MSNBC. All right, and so when you're at the policy making level like you are, or you're at the elite media level at an MSNBC where I was, in both of those cases, you and I are getting a very up close viewpoint of the other side, how their ecosystem, how they operate, what they really think, and how they message to each other and everything else. We're getting a glimpse most of our own people will never get up close and personal. And I can't stress to our people enough, Walter, how different their ecosystem is than ours. And you're seeing the symptom of it in Minnesota, where they win one election in your legislature in 2022, and they're not instantly saying, okay, we got lucky here. This was supposed to be a red wave. How do we hold on to this? They immediately, day one, that's what we would do. Like we could have, Steve, now Mike Johnson's got a 2-seat. It wouldn't matter if he had a 42-seat majority. All right. They'd still be up there saying, how do we hold on to this? We don't want to lose these districts. Their ecosystem and frame of reference, and it's just day one, they show up in the dead of winter in Minneapolis, and they're like, all right, man, San Francisco today, San Francisco tomorrow, San Francisco forever. And it's just like, the conviction level is just dramatically different. And unless you see it like I did at MSNBC, where you see it right now where you are in a legislature like Minnesota, I think our people truly don't understand how different their ecosystem and habitat is compared to our own.
There's no question about it. I think one way to view it that is probably pretty accurate is the difference between wartime thinking and peacetime thinking. Mm-hmm. Republicans, conservatives, however you want to characterize it, we tend to come from a very kind of civilian-oriented, peacetime way of looking at the world, and we also, because we're actual classical liberals, we believe in things like value exchange and transaction and actually being of value to somebody else and producing things that have value and trading value for value. That's not the economic or moral frame that the left is coming from. They view the currency of society as power.
Yes.
They see
everything
power.
is a will to power, narratives, political access. Everything is will to power. Everything is.
Absolutely correct. And I think that's our handicap, one of our handicaps. There's a few. But that's one of our biggest handicaps, is that we fail to recognize that they are operating with a different currency and the exchange rate is done, right? Like if we're going to
in this case, we're the Native Americans trying to give colonial armies wampum while they have guns, right? That's essentially what the roles are now reversed. Well, we've got this wampum to trade. Well, we actually brought guns and we're not going to trade. Okay, we've got a trade called we've got weapons that are bigger than yours, so we'll be taking your land. Now, that's kind of what you're saying, right? This is kind of where they are. They have they're operating under a different moral framework than we are.
Absolutely. I mean, and it's so brazen with the Democrats up here in Minnesota. I mean, it goes to, and this may seem like a petty example, but it goes so far as them moving to change our state flag. Mm-hmm. And they're not even going to let us vote on it. They're having 13 people decide what our flag is going to be to represent 6 million. I mean, that's the type of thing. What does a conqueror do when he gets done?
Yep.
He plants his flag right in the soil.
Yes. Yeah.
He defiles the symbols that were there and erects his own.
Correct.
That's what's going on here in Minnesota. And people have a hard time for whatever reason. And I think it's a multitude of things, but I think one of the most base level things is that people don't want it to be true. They don't want to believe that other people are bad. What drives me nuts is the moral equivocation and this idea of both sides do it, and always kind of nipping at the neck of fellow conservatives for their tone and taking things too far and being quote unquote extreme. And my question to that is always extreme relative to what, right? Like what's the center that you are making your judgments?
Yeah, what's the center of castrate kids? What's the moderate position on that? Yeah.
Right.
What's the moderate position of allow drug cartels to operate unencumbered on your border and create the largest human trafficking enterprise in human history? What's the middle to that? Do you know? I don't know. Yeah.
Well, and I think the good news, to the extent there is any, I mean, you were talking earlier about being black pilled and white pilled, and I vacillate one way or the other depending on the day of the week.
Me too. Yeah.
However, what I do see as positive is just the impact of when truth is told. It's been astounding to me because I didn't know what to expect coming into this job. And I told the people who endorsed me at our convention, I'm just going to tell the truth in every way that I can.
I'm just going to do the most dangerous thing of all. But go ahead. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I'm just going to tell the truth and see what happens. Maybe it's the shortest term anybody's ever had. Maybe it's one term and an out. I don't know, but I'm just going to tell the truth. And I expected to be attacked from all angles, and maybe it's because I'm in the minority under a trifecta that I've been passed over, so to speak, by the angel of death. But so far, people have been so inspired just by virtue of the fact that I'm willing to say certain things and say them in a certain way. And it's because I understand the importance of truth, right? Like, it's not me. Anybody can do this. I think you and I talked about that when you were up here in Minnesota. Mm-hmm. Anybody can do this. It's the truth. The power of the truth is what moves people and inspires people. It's like a torch in a dark cave. Mm-hmm. People are going to follow it, right? And so there's uncapped potential. Like, there's no ceiling on how high the truth can go and how high the truth can take us if more people are willing to speak it. And I get the sense that those seeds are starting to germinate here in the state of Minnesota.
That's a good, encouraging place to end it. It starts with just being willing to tell the truth. Good to see you, Walter. We'll have you back too, brother. All right?
Sounds good. Appreciate
you got it, man. Finish the race. Thank you. All right, Todd, we have about 90 seconds left. Your thoughts here to close it out.
Providential timing on the Day Show once again. It happens a lot. Riley Gaines and Walter Hudson, two people you had never heard of just a couple years ago. Why do you know about them now? Yeah, just what Walter was talking about. They told the truth, and they decided, I'm going to do it. Let's try this.
Let's just tell the truth and see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Funny how it works. They've been blessed. They've been blessed. Look at, they come on. They laugh. They do it with a smile on their face. You know, we still have the opportunity to do this and do this in a way where victory can and will come quickly. And it's not going to take all of us. It's just going to take some of us. Right now, there's almost none of us. Won't you be part of it? Step forward. Tell the truth. Give it a try.
I love the practicality of what he said there at the end. I just decided I'm going to step forward and tell the truth. Let's find out. Let's see what happens when we do that. We're just going to tell the truth. Like when post-Pentecost, when Peter shows up, gives like the first post-Pentecost sermon, right? He doesn't have like some like seven-step evangelism plan. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like they haven't consulted with any church growth consultants about how we're going to add to our ranks.
I'm not ashamed.
Yeah, you just step forward and we're just tell the truth. Okay, Yeshua is your Messiah. You killed him. You need to repent. Just told the truth. I had to repent too. So you got to repent. Look what happened, right? Romans 8:28.